A dense forest sways in the wind. A thin ribbon of light filters through the high pines, catching on something metallic beneath the moss. A hand, weathered, trembling, brushes away the leaves. It's a ski binding, rusted, bent. At first, I thought it was just junk from an old hunting camp, but when I saw the initials scratched into it, I froze. Cut to the news footage from January 2016, grainy images of smiling young faces. Mason Clark, Hannah Price, Eli Turner. Overlay, missing, January 2016, Mount Arrowhead, British Columbia. The search for 3 missing skiers has been suspended after rescuers failed to find any trace of the friends, who vanished in dangerous winter conditions over 2 weeks ago. The voice fades under the howl of the wind. 7 years. No answers. No closure. Until a chance encounter deep in the wilderness unearthed a discovery so disturbing, it reopened one of Canada's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Before the snowstorm, before the silence, there were 3 friends. Mason Clark, 24, the adventurer, born in Portland, Oregon, raised on mountain air and adrenaline. Friends described him as the kind of guy who would climb a tree just to see what was on the other side. On Instagram, his feed was a mosaic of cliff dives, bungee jumps, and remote campsites. But behind that fearless smile, family say, Mason was nursing a quiet restlessness. Hannah Price, 23, the planner, born in Denver, Colorado, a straight-A student in environmental science. She loved 2 things: organizing group trips and documenting them with meticulous detail, journal entries, GoPro footage, photo albums. She was the anchor of the group, the one who made sure the car had gas, the cabin had food, and everyone wore their safety gear. Friends say she was protective, especially of Mason, though the nature of their relationship was never entirely clear. Eli Turner, 25, the quiet risk-taker, from Seattle, Washington. He worked as a mechanic, could fix almost anything, and rarely spoke unless he had something worth saying. Eli had a complicated past, brushes with depression, a DUI at 21, but friends said he was trying to turn his life around. His passion for skiing was second only to his loyalty to Mason, his friend since high school. The trio had met during a volunteer trail clearing project in 2012. Over the years, they traveled to dozens of outdoor destinations together: Yosemite, Banff, Zion. But this trip, Mason told his sister, felt different. According to Mason's sister, he didn't say why, but he seemed almost anxious, like he was going to find something up there, not just ski. It was Friday, January 8, 2016, when the 3 friends loaded up Mason's silver Subaru Outback with skis, snowboards, camping gear, and enough food for 4 days. The plan: a weekend at Mount Arrowhead Lodge, a rustic resort in the British Columbia wilderness, followed by an off-trail skiing adventure. Hannah's last Instagram post, timestamped 7:42 a.m., showed a steaming coffee cup on the dashboard with the caption, "Into the White." Their route took them through winding mountain roads, past frozen lakes reflecting a pale winter sun. They stopped at a gas station in Clearwater, where the cashier, a middle-aged woman named Donna Fraser, remembered them vividly. According to Donna, the girl, Hannah, asked me about avalanche warnings. I told her the conditions were turning bad up there. The guy with the beard, Mason, I think, just smiled and said, "That's when it's the most fun." At 5:17 p.m., they arrived at Mount Arrowhead Lodge, a weathered wooden building with smoke curling from its chimney and a view of the peaks disappearing into clouds. The owner, Gareth Cole, checked them in. According to Gareth, they seemed excited, but, I don't know. There was something in the way the quiet one, Eli, kept looking over his shoulder when they came through the door, like they were expecting someone. That night, guests in the lodge's small tavern recalled seeing the trio at a corner table, maps spread out, speaking in low tones. A tall man in a dark jacket was seated at the bar, glancing at them occasionally. When asked later, no one could say if he was just another guest, or someone who had followed them there. Early signs something was wrong, exactly how a long-form documentary would build tension without rushing. The Mount Arrowhead Lodge had stood for nearly 80 years, a two-story structure of heavy timber and creaking floors, perched on a slope where the wind seemed to whistle in a dozen different voices at night. It was both inviting and unsettling, depending on who you asked. Mount Arrowhead wasn't a luxury ski resort. It was remote, modest, and old-fashioned, the kind of place you booked if you wanted solitude, or if you didn't want to be found. The lobby smelled faintly of pine and wood smoke. A wall of black and white photographs showcased decades of winter guests. Ski teams, honeymooners, families with bundled children. Behind the reception desk stood Gareth Cole, a wiry man in his late 60s, whose grandfather had built the lodge in 1938. When Mason, Hannah, and Eli walked in that Friday evening, snowflakes clinging to their jackets, Gareth took note of more than just their names. According to Gareth, they had that energy about them, you know, travelers who've been on the road all day but are still buzzing. But there was also this unspoken thing. They were smiling, but not relaxed. The tall one, Mason, kept glancing at the door. Hannah kept her hands in her coat pockets, even inside. And Eli's eyes moved like he was counting exits. Gareth handed them an old-fashioned brass key for room 6, one of only 8 guest rooms. It had a balcony facing the east ridge, where the mountains cut into the sky like teeth. Downstairs, the tavern was half full. A fire snapped in the stone hearth. A group of regulars sat by the window, swapping stories over beer. At the far end of the bar sat a tall man in a dark jacket, his face partially shadowed by the brim of a baseball cap. According to Lucy Barnes, I didn't think much of him at first, just another guest. But the way he kept looking over, not like he was curious, more like he was waiting for them to notice him. The trio ordered dinner, venison stew, and bread. They spread out a laminated ski map on their table, tracing routes with their fingers. Hannah leaned in close, her voice barely audible to nearby guests. Mason tapped an unmarked section of the map, a dense backcountry area beyond the official trails. Mount Arrowhead's backcountry was vast, beautiful, and dangerous. Skiers were warned never to enter without a guide. Avalanches, sudden storms, and hidden drop-offs had claimed more than a dozen lives over the years. At one point, Eli got up from the table and stepped outside to smoke. A security camera above the door captured him lingering in the snow for several minutes, glancing left and right before returning inside. That night, other guests heard them in the hallway around 10:30 p.m., laughing softly, the sound of boots thudding on the wooden floor. The last confirmed sighting was Mason in the lodge's front room, sipping from a metal flask and staring out the window at the dark, snow-covered slopes. According to Gareth, the storm rolled in sometime after midnight. The wind was howling. You couldn't see more than a few feet outside. I remember thinking, no one in their right mind will go out in this. But I was wrong. The night of January 8, 2016 was supposed to bring light snow, the kind that settles like powdered sugar on the peaks. That's what the early week forecast had said. But by 9:45 p.m., the wind at Mount Arrowhead was gusting at over 40 miles per hour, and the temperature had already dropped to -14 degrees Celsius 6 degrees Fahrenheit. In the mountains, forecasts can change in minutes. A gentle snowfall can turn into a whiteout faster than most skiers can make it down a slope. That night, nature changed its mind. Up in room 6, the trio had their gear spread across the 2 beds, skis leaning against the wall, goggles lined up on the dresser, avalanche beacons blinking red in standby mode. Hannah, ever the planner, had her journal open. A list covered the page: food rations, compass, first aid kit, flares, extra gloves. She was ticking items off with a pencil. Hannah, journal excerpt, 9:52 p.m. The forecast says gusts tomorrow. Mason still wants to try the East Ridge run, says the storm will thin the crowds. Eli's quiet. Keep pacing. Downstairs, the tavern was beginning to empty. The tall man in the baseball cap left without finishing his drink. According to Lucy Barnes, he slipped out the back door, avoiding the main entrance entirely. According to Lucy, it was strange. I thought I heard a snowmobile starting up after he left. But the lodge doesn't rent those. By 11 p.m., the storm was pounding the building. The old timbers groaned with each gust. The windows rattled in their frames. Gareth, the lodge owner, was up late listening to the weather radio in his office. The automated voice repeated the same alert every 15 minutes. Avalanche danger high. Travel in avalanche terrain is not recommended. Strong winds, heavy snow accumulation, low visibility. The next morning, January 9th, dawn was almost non-existent. A gray haze barely filtering through the clouds. Fresh snow piled knee-deep outside the lodge entrance. At 7:18 a.m., Mason came down to the dining area, wearing his ski boots and a grin. He ordered 3 coffees to go, plus a bag of trail mix and jerky from the lodge shop. Hannah followed a few minutes later, her face set in a look Gareth would later describe as the kind you have when you've made peace with a decision you can't undo. Eli was the last to come down, bundled in layers, his avalanche beacon strapped across his chest. He ate nothing, just sipped coffee and kept his gloves on. According to Gareth, I told them plain, it was a bad idea to go out. I even offered to call a local guide. Mason laughed, saying they had their own route. Hannah thanked me, but it was clear they were going no matter what. Eli, he just looked at me for a long moment before walking out into the snow. Security footage from 8:03 a.m. shows them stepping outside, skis over their shoulders, wind whipping their hoods. Visibility? Less than 50 feet. They moved quickly toward the East Ridge trailhead and vanished into the storm. It would be the last time anyone saw them alive. The storm swallowed them quickly, but a few fragmented sightings helped build the last known path of the 3 friends. At 8:14 a.m., an early rising guest named Peter Rowe spotted 3 figures near the tree line from his second-floor balcony. According to Peter, they weren't on the marked trail. They were already cutting toward the East Ridge. And, I swear, there was another person behind them. Not close, maybe 100 yards back. Too far to see clearly in the snow. No other witnesses could confirm this figure. But just 12 minutes later, a motion-triggered wildlife camera, set up by a local ranger to monitor caribou, captured 3 skiers passing through the lower valley. Their hoods were up, goggles down, but based on gear color and build, investigators believe it was Mason, Hannah, and Eli. Behind them, a faint blur, possibly another skier, possibly nothing more than drifting snow. By Sunday evening, when the trio still hadn't returned, Gareth phoned the Clearwater RCMP. Within 2 hours, a search and rescue operation was underway. Search log, excerpt, January 10th, 8 p.m. Night search suspended due to low visibility. January 11th, 7:15 a.m. 2 SAR teams, 3 avalanche dogs deployed. Jan 11th, 12:34 p.m. Ski pole found half buried in snow, 1.6 miles from East Ridge trailhead. According to SAR team leader, Jason Holbrook, the snow was deep, waist-deep in places. We were moving slow, methodically, probing for voids under the snowpack. If they were caught in an avalanche, the first 24 hours are critical. After that, helicopters scanned the ridge, but the storm's remnants made aerial spotting almost impossible. The ski pole wasn't the only find. On January 12th, searchers discovered a torn black glove. DNA later confirmed it belonged to Eli. What troubled investigators was its location, over 3 miles from the ski pole, in the opposite direction of their presumed route. Snowshoe tracks, possibly from a single person, were found near the glove, but they disappeared into a steep ravine. According to SAR volunteer, Margaret Ellis, we followed those tracks until the slope became too dangerous. The weird part? They weren't fresh. The snow had already crusted over them. Whoever made them had been there before the storm hit full force. By January 15th, the RCMP officially downgraded the search from rescue to recovery. The families were devastated. According to Hannah's mother, they didn't even have bodies to bury, just absence. Media attention dwindled within weeks. Local papers moved the story off the front page. Online, a small group of armchair detectives began collecting every scrap of info, GPS coordinates, weather data, gear lists, but without new evidence, the case stalled. For years, the only activity was online. A subreddit, r/Arrowhead Mystery, attracted thousands of users. Some analyzed topographical maps. Others dissected the blurred wildlife camera image frame by frame. In 2018, Hannah's mother received an anonymous letter postmarked from Prince George, British Columbia. The letter simply read, "They were not alone." Handwriting analysis was inconclusive. Police traced no fingerprints. August 19, 2023. Caleb Reeves, a 42-year-old carpenter from Kamloops, set off on a solo hiking trip in the remote Arrowhead backcountry. He was following an unmarked route along a creek when something metallic caught the sun. It was a ski binding, rusted but still intact, with the initials MC scratched into the underside. Nearby, half hidden under moss, lay a weathered backpack. Inside, 3 cell phones, all water damaged and dead. A dented thermos. A folded topographic map, marked with a route leading far from any official trail. The hiker reported his find to the RCMP immediately. Within a week, a forensic team descended on the site. 50 yards from the backpack, near the mouth of a small cave, they found skeletal remains. 3 sets. Analysis confirmed they were Mason, Hannah, and Eli. Inside the cave, investigators found charred firewood, torn jackets, and food wrappers. And in a side pocket of the backpack, a water-damaged journal belonging to Hannah. Most of the writing was illegible, but the final page contained 4 chilling words, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "We're not alone here." Experts proposed several possibilities. Disorientation in the storm leading them far off course. Pursuit by another person. The 4th figure from witness accounts. A deliberate detour towards something they thought was shelter. Being forced off course under duress. According to survival expert, Dr. Lena Santos, if they had the gear to make a fire and ration food, they could have survived for days. The real question is why they never moved toward the ranger station only 2 days away. Over the years, theories multiplied. A hermit known to inhabit the Arrowhead wilderness. An illegal hunting camp that didn't want witnesses. Organized crime connections, far-fetched but persistent online. Supernatural speculation. Something in the woods. Police never named a suspect. The man in the dark jacket from the lodge was never identified. In October 2023, the families held a joint memorial at the base of Mount Arrowhead. 3 white candles were placed on a snow-covered rock. The mountain keeps its secrets. And for 3 friends who once laughed in the warmth of the lodge, all that remains is a rusted ski binding, a weathered backpack, and a final message that leaves more questions than answers. Fade to black. Sound. The faint whistle of the mountain wind. Snow falls gently over the peaks of Mount Arrowhead, covering the slopes, the trails, and the cave where the mystery ended, or perhaps truly began. The truth about what happened to Mason Clark, Hannah Price, and Eli Turner may never surface from beneath the snow. The mountain has kept its silence for 7 long years, and it may keep it forever. A slow pan over the recovered items. The ski binding with scratched initials. The faded map. The water-damaged journal with its final words. "We're not alone here." The wind howls softly. The screen fades to black. Some answers are buried too deep, and some questions were never meant to be asked. And if you love mysteries like this, make sure to subscribe, because next week, we're covering a case even stranger than this one.